We've got the Warriors and Wizards, followed by the Timberwolves and Lakers. But before we get to our doubleheader, we've got an hour-long TNT NBA tip-off presented by Auto Trader, during which we will announce the starters for the All-Star game in Charlotte. Ernie Johnson, Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny the Jet Smith, and Charles Barkley at your service tonight. Before we go any further, I want to join the chorus of all those who are sending their best to Victor Oladipo. One of the most popular guys out there, just a great dude and such a talent in this league. And to be lost for the season now after what happened last night, it's a ruptured quad tendon, and he is out for the season.
Ernie, number one, Victor, you know we love you. We love having you on the talent show. You're a hell of a player. I almost started crying last night, Ernie, because I knew what it was. That was the same injury that ended my career.
Yep.
And when I saw it, I said, he tore his quad. And it's awful for the Pacers. But, man, he's such a great kid and a great player. All our thoughts and prayers are with you, Victor.
Wish you well, brother.
Yeah, you know what? You know, it's so unfortunate. You know, Victor is, like Charles, I'm going to reiterate, one of the good guys in the NBA. I've known him since he got into the league. It's pretty funny because he and his guys that he associate with, Jay and all of his camp, when they're in LA, it's like, where's the gym? Kenny, you got the keys to the gym, open up. And we get in the gym and just work out, you know, for the last couple of years and coming to events and going to his things. So I'm just sick. I was sick last night just hearing that, you know, and knowing that it was possibly that injury after it came out with, you know, with Charles, which how serious it was with Charles, you know, just wishing you and his best. His mom is great.
The good
whole
thing,
family's great.
The good thing, it's the same injury that Tony Parker had. And he's a lot younger than Tony Parker. Tony Parker's playing very well, so that's encouraging. I was already going to retire, so it had no effect upon me, but I would call Tony Parker right away and say, hey, tell me how you did your rehab. Because Tony Parker's been playing very well this year.
Yeah, he was a young guy. He was hustling for ball. Freak injury. It happened. But, you know, the good thing is, you know, everyone's wishing him well. He's going to get the surgery, whatever. He's going to do rehab, and I believe he's going to come back even stronger.
Yeah, prayers up for Victor Oladipo from all of us here. As we get set to announce the All-Star starters, a brief explanation of how the voting works. Voting by you, the fans, counts 50%. Balloting by a media panel counts for 25%, and the final 25% comes from player ballots. When all of those numbers are put in a computer, it spits this out. This is 17 pages worth of names and numbers. And at the top of the, you know, if you're the top three front court and top two back court in each conference, those are the 10 starters. If there was a tie in the weighted score, the fan vote is the tiebreaker, and that did come into play in the Western Conference. Here's the way it turned out in the West as we reveal the starters for the All-Star game
Ernie,
in Charlotte. We begin.
This was the best the fans ever did. I have no problems with anybody.
LeBron James will be the captain on one side. He's tied with Kobe now with 15 All-Star game starts, averaging 27 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists on the year. Joining him along the front line, Kevin Durant, 10 straight All-Star appearances in this, his 12th season, averaging 28 points a game, which is number 4 in the league. All-Star game MVP in 2012, 4-time scoring champion, and two-time horse champion 09 and 10. Paul George is the other starter in the front court.
He's played great all year.
27 points a game is number 8 in the league. Career high in points, rebounds, and steals this year. He won a tiebreaker over Anthony Davis for the starting spot in the Western Conference.
Wow.
We go to the backcourt. Steph Curry, 6th straight All-Star appearance. He's averaging 29 points a night, which is number 3 in the league. He's 5th in three-point percentage. They're 28-8 when he plays, 5-6 when he doesn't, and he makes it look effortless. And James Harden joins him in the backcourt. 7th straight All-Star selection. I don't even know how much else you have to say about this guy.
Oh, yeah, 61 last night.
Leads the league in scoring.
Yeah, 61 last night.
He's 4th in assists.
Yeah, 61 last night.
31 games of at least 30, including 21 straight 30-point games. Derrick Rose and Russell Westbrook tied for 3rd.
Wow.
Behind Steph Curry and James Harden. And so that Anthony Davis situation with Paul George
Well, Paul George, no disrespect to Anthony Davis, but Paul George deserved to be a starter. I saw, obviously, when we had to pick out our reserves, I saw both lists today. In my 30-some years in the NBA, I thought the fans and coaches and media got it perfect.
Well, it's a combination of all three, so it's not just one. So what was the fan?
Well, we're going to.
The fans would have wanted it.
We're going to reveal that right now. So here's the way the fans wanted it. The fans wanted James, Doncic, and Kevin Durant. They didn't want Paul George or Anthony Davis.
That don't make it
starting.
Right.
And Steph Curry and Derrick Rose were the fan choices in their balloting. Now on the media side, LeBron, Durant, and Anthony Davis with Harden and Curry. In fact, Harden ahead of Curry in the backcourt among the media. And
he deserves that.
And on the player ballot, James, Durant, and Davis, Curry and Harden in the backcourt. So actually, when you look at it, Paul George trailed in the player vote, and he trailed in the media vote, but the fan vote, that's where Anthony Davis was fifth, and that's what cost him a starting spot.
Well, Paul George deserved to start, but I also have a problem with Damian Lillard. The players should have him higher than that.
Hey, Damon, you see where your peers are thinking? When they come to Portland.
He should be higher than 5.
And you touched on James Harden. I mean, again, when you saw what happened, and what was the headline in the New York paper? Madison Square Harden. I mean, he went for 61 points last night.
I mean, we understand that the Knicks aren't a very good basketball team.
Well, that's an understatement.
But 61 points is 61 points.
No question.
There's no way around it. And his ability to score in multiple ways, the last guy I've seen to do this is Kobe Bryant. To be able to score this easy, he's the Kobe Bryant of this era, scoring at this kind of clip, doing things I haven't seen.
And he's known for the three, and he went
Shaq on this list
last night.
Damn, Shaq.
Of course, you know.
You must have been pretty good in your day.
Yeah, back in 2000 to have.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at some old videotapes.
He went 5 for 20 last night. You know, he's known for the three ball. You know, he's very deadly behind the three ball. Went to the free throw line 20 times. But Kenny's right. He's very hard to stop. My only fear for him is he's doing a lot of scoring last month. Hopefully,
there's some people that are
in the postseason.
There's some people, Shaq, and you, Charles, you can kind of jump in on this. That's saying, there's probably a bunch of guys in the league that could do what he's doing if they had that shot opportunity. I don't believe that. I only believe there's 1 or 2 guys that could get 50 consistently at this clip. Now, you guys were prolific scorers. If you had got the ball that much they needed you to do that much, could you score at that clip? Because I don't know if a lot of guys can do that as being an NBA player.
No, because, number one, James
said yes or no?
No.
Thank you.
Well, I think Steph Curry and KD are probably the only 2 guys, because those 2 will be the only 2 guys who are going to shoot that many threes.
Right.
But that would be the caveat. Like, I can't get 50 a night unless I made 5 to 7 to 10 threes.
Right.
Like, I can get 30 or 40, but
he took 20 last night.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, so
he got the free throw line.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. And they're saying now, a lot of guys, being a former NBA player, one, the fatigue of it, the mental preparation and everything that he does, a lot of guys can't do that. No.
But can he maintain it?
But can he maintain it? He's maintained it for longer than I've ever seen.
But I don't think you can win. I don't think you can win like that.
But I don't know if you can win. But guys, listen,
it's amazing.
15 and
everyone
6.
Can't do
15
that.
and 6 over this 21-game stretch, and when he scored at least 30 points.
There aren't 10 guys in the NBA that can do that.
No, it's not 10. It's like less than 5. No.
Thank you.
Rockets number 5 in the West. We will talk a bit later about who we think should be the Western Conference reserves. That comes a little bit later in our show. Let's get a little Twitter action here. Oh, that's from the Timberwolves. Yeah, Derrick Rose coming close, but not quite close enough. He did win the tiebreaker over Westbrook for the number 3 spot, but you only got 2 spots in the backcourt for all-star starters. When we come back, we will announce the starters from the Eastern Conference. Keep it right here.
Take a look at Joel Embiid and try to assess whether you think he's going to play tonight against the San Antonio Spurs. He's been great when he's been out there. 20 or more points in 16 straight games.
too spectacular against the Rockets the other day.
20 times, 30 and 10 this season for Embiid. Ben Simmons is going to play tonight.
He's pretty good.
I'm saying he's really good. He's just unsure tonight about his availability. Simmons will play. He's dealing with an illness, but he's going to go. And Jimmy Butler will sit out again because of that sore wrist. They take on the San Antonio Spurs, who come in having lost 3 of their last 5. They blew out the Sixers in their first meeting back in San Antonio. What a little more than halfway through the season, what have you seen about the Sixers that you like? What questions would you still like answered?
Well, I mean, look, I think there's still a team that's doesn't shoot it as well from the perimeter as you'd like, if you're talking about them being a contender. But Joel Embiid is so good. He was so good against Houston the other day. If you could take a player and ride him in his game through the playoffs, they've got one of the handful of guys to me in the league that if Embiid gets in that bag and really starts playing at a high level in the postseason, I don't know how you'd stop him. I don't know what another team would do to take him away completely to prevent him from being effective.
No doubt about it, other than go look at the blueprint that the Boston Celtics put forth last year. Like, what gets lost in all of this sometimes is because these young, incredibly talented players show us their ceiling, we forget how important experience is in the postseason.
Sure.
And when you play in a regular season, I don't game plan. We just kind of talk about what we want to try and do against you, but we don't drill it. We don't have tendencies. We don't have a book on you, and we're not on the same schedule. When you get in the postseason now, I get an opportunity. I remember playing for Pat Riley my rookie year. After the season, we're getting ready for the playoffs, and the assistant coach brought me a book. And I was like, damn, I didn't know what it was a book of every player, every play they ran that season. Every play. So everything they had ever done on that court. So you knew every tendency.
Right.
You knew what they'd go to when things got tight. You knew the plays they were going to run. And so that's why I always say in the postseason, that's why you need great players in the postseason. Because great players can score against great defense consistently. And great talents can score, but they need the experience. Now, last year will help him and Ben Simmons because, it showed them as much as we thought and were ready to anoint, they weren't quite ready.
No, end of the game execution was terrible.
It was not very good.
And also couldn't get loose the way they needed.
And the pressure of the moment.
That's when they had more shooters.
Yeah, and it was also the pressure of the moment. Because what happens is they'd never been in those situations before, ever.
Right.
They'd never, in their careers, they'd never been in situations where they felt a little unsure, where they weren't, comfortable with who they were as a player at that level because they'd never had anybody be able to make them do things they didn't want to do. And so that's why that postseason, that experience will help them. But their growth, I think, is coming. The question for me, big picture, is, okay, is the depth going to be there? Because as good as those guys are, you're still going to have guys coming off your bench that can give you quality minutes, that can make big plays. And that's where those veteran guys. Last year, to Sekou's point, they had a better overall roster, even though this one has more top-level talent than they did. To have the Bellinellis and guys like that, and Ilyasova.
And who they got for nothing.
Yeah, those veteran guys that you can trust in big moments to make plays. Not having those guys is a concern.
They'll see Bellinelli tonight for San Antonio. By the way, Joel Embiid will play, we are now told.
Oh, good.
For the 76ers.
I got my league pass already set up.
Because the end of the game execution was a serious issue for them against the Celtics. How much of a difference will Butler make in that he's likely to have the ball in his hands a lot in those late game situations?
It will make it. And listen, in all fairness, Brett Brown's got to take some responsibility too. I remember you and I were working during the regular season last year, and we had a couple times in the game situations where I didn't know what the hell they had tried to draw up and run. It was so, as much as we want to put it on the players, Brett Brown and his staff have to take some responsibility. I don't think they handle in the games. That Celtic game where his team was imploding in the second quarter last year in the postseason, in the game they were up big, he didn't call a timeout. He just basically let it go, and they ended up losing that game in the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And again, he's got to be able to help that young group with his ability to give them stuff that they feel confident in when they have to go out and execute.
Let me interrupt for just a second because Victor Oladipo apparently has